Animating graphics to audio can take on two different forms inside of After Effects. The first form is the most traditional form of animation, just cutting up your graphics to the beat of the music. But the second form is actually using audio to generate new graphics. We'll explore both forms in this video. To get started, I want to actually animate the text in this scene. But before we do that, let's go ahead and press period on our keypad to load up an audio-only preview. On a standard size keyboard, you can press Ctrl period. So I'll press the spacebar to stop playback. You can see we've already added some markers in our composition and our audio layer. These are signifying the different frames of the audio build where new instruments are actually popping into the track. So let's go ahead and animate our text. We can select layer 1 and load another audio preview, but this time I want you to look very closely at the current time indicator as it's playing. I'm going to choose an area in here where I'd like to actually begin my edit and change the text, but I don't want to specifically add a marker there, so let's go ahead and start. I'll stop playback here, and I believe it was right around this area, 1 second, 9 frames. Let's go ahead and press the period button again to preview our audio. So that was a little late. I'll go ahead and just move it back here. Okay, it's somewhere in between. Ever having an issue trying to find the specific point for the waveform, go ahead and press double L on your keyboard with the audio track selected. So let's select layer 4 and press LL. In here I can see the exact audio track, and I can zoom really closely in to be very precise on one of the tick marks for the audio. Let's go ahead and just move back here now, and I can see my audio, and let's load up an audio-only preview. Again, it's Ctrl period on a standard size keyboard. And that's it exactly. 1 second, 3 frames. Let's go ahead and open up our layer 1 and open up the text options, and we'll click on the keyframe option for source text. Now I want that change to happen right here, so let's move down 1 frame. I'll just click and drag on my current time indicator, and now we can change our text. I would like to change from the word energy to exercise, so let's double click on the text in the composition panel. When you're finished setting your text, go ahead and grab your selection tool. Now let's make the text larger by going to our character panel and changing that value from 80 to something around 120. Now since the text popped off the side of the screen, I'm going to go ahead and just reposition it here towards the center of the screen in between our flying circles. So let's scrub through the timeline, and you can see now the word is actually repositioned in the page. This has happened because when we use these two keyframes, they're only recording the specific parameters of the word. Like the typeface, what it says, the font, the size, it's not recording things like the position or the rotation. Those values are down here, and none of those have been keyframed. So when we reposition, now we reposition both instances of word. Now that we've animated layer 1, let's go ahead and collapse that layer. Let's focus on creating our new graphic element that will animate to the music. To do that, we need to create a layer solid. Let's go up to the layer menu and choose new solid. The most important setting is make comp size, so go ahead and select that. It doesn't matter what your color is because we're going to generate a whole new graphic. So I'm just going to click OK. Let's go back to Effect one more time. This time we'll go to Generate. The two audio parameters that we can generate graphics with are Audio Spectrum and Audio Waveform. They both have very similar features, so I'll show you the features of one and you can apply it to the other. Let's choose Audio Waveform. Now notice we have this pink line in the middle of our comp. Let's make the line go all the way across the comp by clicking on those control handles. Just hold down Shift as you click and drag the control handles off the sides of your composition. Now, if we were to load up a RAM preview, nothing would be happening because we haven't chosen the audio track to drive this graphic. So if we go up to the audio layer, pull down the effect control, let's click on that and make sure to choose Animation Music.wave. Now we've started creating some graphics. Now just to create some noticeable graphics, I'm going to click and drag on the maximum height setting, and let's drag this up quite a bit. Let's drag it up to about 1100. With our graphic a little larger, let's go ahead and load up a RAM preview. I'm going to press 0 on my keypad. After a few seconds, go ahead and press the spacebar to preview. So let's stop playback there. Now, I like how that's going, but as the music builds, I'd like to go ahead and animate the color change for this graphic. So let's go ahead and click and drag to change the magnification of our timeline. Let's move our current time indicator to the second keyframe. I'm going to hold down Shift as I drag, and right here is where we want to add a keyframe for our color parameter for our waveform. So let's go ahead and just click and drag from inside color to outside color, and that will add a keyframe for both parameters. Since we added the keyframe exactly on 6 seconds, let's move down one frame in the timeline, and then we can change the color here. So let's grab our eyedropper for the inside color and sample this kind of teal color. And for the outside color, let's click and sample this yellow color. Now between those two, it's created kind of a green effect, but it definitely blends with the background a little bit more. Now we can scrub back through, and you can see that it's actually going to change at that marker. Now I encourage you to keep going through the different markers and make changes accordingly. I'm sure you understand how this function works. So I'm going to continue building the graphic. Let's add some separation between our graphic elements in this scene. Everything looks kind of busy. First thing, let's click our layer to text layer and bring it up to the top of the layer hierarchy. Let's press T to open its opacity, and you can see it's already up at 100%. Just to make this pop a little more, I'm going to press Command D to duplicate the layer. Now it's significantly brighter in the scene. If I wanted to change how bright that was, I could press T on the second layer and just adjust its opacity up or down. Now we need to set back this audio waveform a little bit because it's very dominant and it's cutting up our text. So to do this, I'll add a very soft blur, and we can adjust that in the Effect Control panel. Let's click and drag on the softness parameter. We can also adjust the thickness, so let's click and drag the thickness to increase it. Now it looks a little blurry, but it's still too dominant in the scene. We can fix this with a blend mode. If you don't have your blend modes up, make sure you toggle your switches and modes till you see the blend mode. Now let's change it from normal to screen. This will help it blend with some of the other elements. Now we can press T on our keyboard to blend the opacity back down. Now there's one more thing we can do to create a little bit more separation for it. Let's select layer 3 and press Command D or Control D on Windows to duplicate. I want to blur this out and scale it up, and this will create a little more of a halo around this graphic. So let's go to Effect Blur, and we'll do Fast Blur, and we can increase the blurriness value in the effect controls just by clicking and dragging up to the right. Now we can press S to open the scale for that layer and go ahead and click and drag to increase the scale of that layer. Now let's move this below layer 4. Now I know it looks like a random blur, but as you actually watch this animate, you'll notice the blur is going to create these really interesting pops in the background. Now I could continue going through different blend modes and tweaking different layers, but I think you understand the process for creating graphics edited to audio. Let's go ahead and load up a RAM preview and check out our finished work. So I think we definitely have the base of a good project started. So as usual, I encourage you to continue exploring and pushing it in your own direction.